Continuing with Josh McDowell, the author of this remarkable book, Undaunted, one man's real-life journey from unspeakable memories to unbelievable grace. A movie's coming out soon, but this is one page-turner, friends. It's one of the most gripping books that I have ever read. And Josh, just a few minutes ago, we were talking about the impact of sexual abuse on your life. And before we talk about that further, you mentioned Jerry Sandusky. This is a story that's gone around the world, of course, and he has been found guilty, I think, on all 45 charges. He hasn't been sentenced yet. Apparently, he's on suicide watch. What do you say to the guys out there who are so compelled to prey on young boys? Some of them have got to feel trapped. Some of them have to feel awful about what they're doing, or do they?
You probably have a mixture of a lot of things. I've chatted with quite a few of them, whether in prison, out of prison, or what. And this seems to be an overall truth. So many of them, deep down in, they say, I wanted to be caught.
I wanted to be caught.
I wanted to be caught. Those that do it, one, they know it's evil what they're doing. But Jim, I don't know if I'll say this right or not. All of us have things in our lives that's not right that we do, and we feel trapped. I think it's the same way with sex abuse and all. For most of them, they're repeating what happened in their own life. I realize now that I'm very fortunate. Most people that have been through with alcohol, family violence, and sex abuse that I've been through usually become an alcoholic. They commit violence, and they abuse children. And I'm so fortunate that I haven't seen any of that in my life. But I understand that's rare. And so my heart, this is incredible. I've been abused, but my heart goes out to the abuser. Because I think in many ways they're trapped. It does not excuse it.
No.
But in many ways, they're trapped. And often what is needed to overcome it is not hatred, it's love.
Now, when some of these men are trapped, Sandusky's a case in point, they claim, even after they've been convicted, that they're totally innocent. Now, do they actually believe that? Or are they just afraid of consequences? Or are they trying to recover some dignity? I mean, why would he say, I'm completely innocent?
Jim, I don't know. I really, I would hesitate to venture on an answer. I don't have the background to answer that or anything. All I know is I thank God I forgave Wayne Bailey.
And you've made that very clear in
If
your book.
I hadn't have, I'd probably be an abuser today.
Right.
And there's enough consequences in my life without that.
Let's get back to the consequences of sexual abuse. You got into that last interview. Expand on it a bit. What were some of the other things that are there because of sexual abuse?
Right when I finally went public a few years ago, I went to Steve Arterburn, a dear friend of mine, co-hosted many of my TV shows.
We've had him here at Huntley Street.
He has a homosexual brother and all, and it's public. And I shared with him, and he started asking me questions. He said, Josh, you're a rare bird. I said, what do you mean? He said, you made decisions as a non-believer, somebody who was sexually abused, as some of the healthiest decisions you can make. I said, like what? He said, one. And this is true. I never looked at myself as a victim. I don't to this day. You choose to be a victim. Nobody can make you a victim unless you allow them, no matter rape or what. And I determined I was not a victim. And Steve said, Josh, that's one of the hardest things to get those who've been abused to come to that point to realize. Second, he said, when you made the decision, I remember making it and I believe it to this day, I am not damaged goods. I understand that most young men, young women, when they're sexually abused, feel, why should I wait anymore sexually? I'm damaged goods. Nobody will want me. I wasn't a believer. At 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 years old, in my mind, I was not damaged goods. But I've also realized I need to avoid certain things that will recall the consequences. For example, all the time, the other day in Peru, the senior pastor of this huge seminar said, would all the other pastors come here? We want to lay our hands on Josh and pray for him. It was in front of thousands of people, and I had to say, no. And I say it all the time. People think, and they think, oh, Josh McDowell here is a Christian influencer. How horrible, he doesn't want people to pray for him. They miss the point. I never, and it's my right to do it, I never want anyone to touch me when they're praying for me. I've had pastors get upset with me. Who do you think you are? But the reason is, Jim, pastors don't even know, men don't even know they do it. But every man who's ever prayed for me, including my own pastor, whatever, he'll put his hand on your shoulder. They don't know they're doing it. They'll start to rub you like this. It's incredible. When a group of deacons or pastors gather around and they all touch you, 3/4 will start rubbing you. That's exactly what Wayne Bailey did. He started on my shoulders rubbing, and then he went down my body. And when somebody's praying for me, if they just touch me like that, no problem. Somebody puts their arm, no problem. It's when they start rubbing me. It's almost like, and to them it's a spiritual way, to me it's a sensual way. When they start rubbing, I mean, Jim, my mind is just flooded with images in this man. So one way I control that is I ask people, do not pray for me, please, but do not touch me. And people still go, I say, I'll take, one man the other day, a pastor of a big church, I just grabbed his arm and yanked it. I said, do not, he felt about this big. I mean, I told him 3 times in front of everyone, please do not touch me. And finally I explained to the crowd why. And only the people in the crowd who've been sexually abused could understand that. A person that hasn't been sick can understand it. And people, pastors say to me and others say, Josh, you need to trust Jesus more. Oh, I said, what do you think I've been doing for 60 years? I couldn't have made it through today without trusting Christ. He never promised to take away all the consequences. No. He promised to walk it through with me and to supply all my needs, and he has. I am stronger today than I ever was before. But it doesn't mean I don't have a lot of weaknesses in my life. Yeah. And I need, out of the brilliance of the Holy Spirit, the knowledge of his word, to understand my weaknesses, surrender them to Christ, and then with wisdom, avoid situations that bring them up. And one thing I do is, do not touch me when you pray for me. Now people come and say, oh, I don't want to put my arm around. I said, no, that's not what I said. That's okay, it doesn't bother me. It's when you come up and you start rubbing me. Do you understand that, Jim? Yeah. And all these things, so I control it by saying, do not. And you know, those of you watching, I mean, so many of you have been abused. You know what I'm saying. But maybe it's other areas of your life that they're affected with. For me, this has been mine. Touching me, praying for me, etc.
I was talking to a young pastor one day years ago with a terrific church, great family, who was sexually abused by a male when he was a boy and was imprinted with sexual pleasure at that point in time. And he of course, did not pursue a homosexual lifestyle, but he told me that every day he struggles with it. He said every day he finds himself, you know, thinking about
I've heard that so often.
A relationship with a man, and that's why I asked you the question. You know, if you were drawn to men, but
it's just the opposite.
Yeah,
I'm repelled.
Yeah. Now what about your relationship with women? Now you've been.
When it comes to my wife, yeah. Bring it on. I love it.
Yeah, you're
41 years of it.
Very happily married, and it's very obvious, and you're ready to talk about it anytime. Was it a challenge for you to love a woman as a young man?
Oh yeah. But I don't think because sex abuse.
Yeah.
I was afraid to get married, and I was afraid to have children. I didn't get married until I was 31. Well, I was traveling all over the world reaching young people for Christ. I just didn't have time to think about it. Yeah. But I had a fear of getting married because I really had not seen a beautiful relationship until I was about 26 years old. And then 3 people, Paul and Leslie Lewis, Jim and Vivian Simpson, Dick and Charlotte Day. Up until then, I'd rather stay single my whole life than have a type of marriage my parents had. Right. But when I saw Jim and Vivian Simpson, and I saw Paul and Leslie Lewis, and I saw Dick and Charlotte Day, I saw their love for each other and all, and I thought, gosh, it is possible. Yeah. Second, I didn't want to have children because I saw very few families where the father had a phenomenal relationship with their kids. And I didn't want to have the kind of relationship with my children that my father had with me. I'd rather stay single without kids my whole life. But then, and I mean this, Jim, if I'd married any other type of woman apart from Dottie, I don't know what had happened in my life. Dottie didn't know all that she was taking on when she married me. I'm a personality A, I'm go for it, reach the world for Christ. And if I was personality Z, I would still want to do that. Yeah. But she didn't know all the baggage. I can honestly say I never knew a woman could love a man as much as Dottie loves me. I never thought it was possible. I never saw it. I often say this. I don't think there's any Hollywood film of a love story that equals Dottie's love for me. I'm not saying my love for her. I think it's great, but Dottie's love for me. Dottie changed my life. She always loved me for who I am. And eventually, that opened up things. To this day, I have absolutely no fear in my life of Dottie learning anything about my life. She loved me in spite of it. And I often say, and I get criticized for this, but Dottie has changed my life more than Jesus has. Now, I'm smart enough to know it was Jesus through my wife. Yeah. But if I just looked at Jesus and Dottie, I'd have to say, oh my gosh, Dottie wins the prize more than Jesus. I'm a different man. I couldn't have been the father that I am today. I have 4 children. As Dottie says, honey, your children would die for you. I never dreamed you could have a family like I have. I didn't. I never saw it in my home. I never knew you could love your children so much, and your children could love each other and love you. It almost is surreal. It's like, I never talk much about it public because people say, oh, you're just blinded. But my children love me. It's had a profound effect upon my life. But without Dottie, I couldn't have the family I have. I couldn't be the father that I am. I couldn't be a follower of Jesus that I am without the love of my wife for me.
Josh McDowell, you want to hear more from him for sure, and you will.